Alright everyone, it's time for some more midterm bans. We're turning our eyes to Nevada currently, actually, because those races have the very tight 50-50 sum game there. I would have said would have been very meaningful like a month ago. Now it looks like Georgia is going to be the 50-50 sum game, or maybe even Pennsylvania. Assuming that there's any skew within the polling. As we see out of Brazil right now, the end polls are not always fully accurate. 8-point swing in the final results. That's interesting. It's almost like there was push polling going on. I wonder if that'll happen in the United States. No, that couldn't happen. The pollsters in the U.S. are so honest above board about their practices and totally don't missample things based on past results. Hint, hint, most pollsters are adjusting and fudging their numbers right now for the perceived turnout of the 2020 election. Just so that we're aware of things, I think that my conservative estimate of 1.5 to 2 points might be far too conservative. Anyway, I'm going to open these tabs here and go through this verbatim because this is actual statistical data. We have the Nevada Senate race, Lazalt versus Cortez-Masto, and the gubernatorial race, Lombardo versus Sisolak. These are both Dem incumbent positions. Anytime you knock off an incumbent, that's good for your party. If it's like an open race, like the old incumbent left or something like that, it's meaningful if you win it, of course. You get the Senate seat, you get the gubernatorial seat. But if you can remove an incumbent and take a number out of the enemy's camp, it's more meaningful. It doubles the damage done. With regards to the Nevada Senate race, I'm going to read some of these numbers. There has been a widening of the GOP lead. Originally, this was considered to be, if not safe Dem, at least lean Dem. And what we do see is that there are fewer and fewer undecided voters. Lazalt has led in all 5 of the recent polls that are being aggregated here. Not by a huge margin. Of course, if there were a tilt in the Dems' favor in the final results, you would expect to lose this seat. You've got a +1 from The Hill, a +1 for Data for Progress. Now keep in mind, this is a left-wing think tank. Data for Progress is an attaché of the DNC, and they're still showing Lazalt up a point. Insider Advantage, not the most reliable polling firm, shows Lazalt ahead by 3. Trafalgar by 4, and the Nevada Independent, that's more local, by +2. These are all polls of likely voters, by the way, so this is the primo stuff. You don't have a poll that shows Cortez-Masto up in the Nevada race. This shows, in my opinion, a swing back towards the GOP that is led partially by Hispanic voters and partially as the result of the border crisis and crime. Within this part of the country, so New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, could start seeping into Colorado, although right now it seems to be continuing to become more blue. In this area, I've spoken for some years now how the southwest corner of the country and the Pacific Northwest, to some degree, have been getting more blue over time generally. The Democrats heavily targeting them, targeting Hispanic voters in the southern end, certainly targeting the far left in the Pacific Northwest. Of course, you got Portland up there, etc. And for a generation almost, it was working. Some of these regions were swing states or just leaned blue. Oregon has gotten far more blue. Idaho has been getting closer and closer. Utah, for example, and certainly Arizona and Nevada. Nevada had been a key swing state. This is why its primary is held fairly early on within the primary system for both parties. Now it appears to be moving in the other direction. This shows that around, what month was it actually? Around the middle of September, the polls began to flip, and Cortez-Masto has been losing steam ever since. Lazalt seems locked at 45, but he's still got about a 2-point advantage in the aggregate. As of today, I would give a 70% chance that the Republicans manage to flip this Senate seat. That is a huge pickup because this is one that was more of a 50-50 sum game a month ago, and before that would probably hold Democratic. Them flipping this seat means that the Democrats have to fight twice as hard in a place like Pennsylvania, which is close enough. It's a little bit less close than this in favor of Fetterman, but then he's going to have his stroke debate in a couple of weeks, and we're not sure what's going to happen thereafter. In Georgia, Herschel Walker could easily win that race. That would give the GOP their Senate pickup, possibly 2 seats. So that's first. Secondly, we've got the gubernatorial slot. And this is again where Sisolak, the Democrat incumbent, had been leading by a very, very substantial margin not that long ago. Back in August and September, it was Sisolak's to lose. Since the Trafalgar poll, August 8, August 18th, sorry, there has been no poll showing Sisolak ahead. There are a couple of tied polls. You have Lombardo up by 2 in the old Trafalgar and Fabrizio polls, and then in the current polling slew, you have a tie for the Hill, a tie again, Data for Progress. This is the left-wing think tank showing a statistical tie between these candidates, and 2+3 polls, respectively the New Trafalgar poll and the Nevada Independent again. Again, 70% chance the Republicans pick up another gubernatorial slot. In fact, I'm considering, based on the new polling that we have, and I know that we're still weeks out from the midterms, so there will be a final prediction like a week beforehand, and I'll be going live, of course, with Sleazy P. Martini for the midterms. I would give a 70% chance of this being another pickup. I'm considering revising the estimation to the GOP picking up 2 Senate seats and 3 gubernatorial slots. If that happens and you have more than a 25-seat movement in the House, which I favor heavily, you have a red wave election. You retake the Senate, although not by a huge margin. You've taken over several additional state houses. You're getting awfully close to a state supremacy sort of situation for the GOP. If it has enough governors, Biden's administration becomes lame duck effectively. You got to realize that state laws preempt federal for many purposes. Federal government's more constrained directly, a la the 10th Amendment. And then you retake the House. What's Biden going to do for the subsequent 2 years that he may or may not even fully serve in office? At the rate of his cognitive decline, I would not favor that being the case. I would favor him being 25th or being strongly encouraged by his protege there in the White House to stand aside and let somebody else take the reins of power. Mr. President, you've done such a good job. We all love you. We're very proud of you. And you got elected president, which was your goal since the 1970s. Congratulations, Joey. They pat him on the back, give him an extra grain biscuit for his lunch so he can have an extra poo-poo. But now it's time for you to sundown. It's time for you to fucking go away. Kamala's in charge now. Or maybe they'll throw her under the bus, try to get her to resign, and they'll get Nancy Pelosi will be president. That'd be her ultimate win. She can't be House leader anymore, so they just make her president of the United States. It'd be fucked up, and she wouldn't be any more coherent than Biden is, but it'd be funny anyway. Can you imagine her giving the State of the Union address? Oh boy, I'd shit myself laughing. Based on the metrics that I see here, Nevada is pulling away in the GOP's favor. We've seen the same thing in Georgia. We've seen a tightening of the race in Pennsylvania. I don't know that it'll be enough, but Mehmet Oz potentially could win. If there's a 3-point gap between the final polling and the actual result in the GOP's favor, which is not historically beyond precedent, it can be upwards of 7 points. In a few cases, it was double digits. If that happens, it's going to be a goddamn slaughter for the Democrats. And yeah, I see so many people, and I hate it, so many people only analyze the generic ballot and like a handful of major polls, especially if they just look at one polling firm, and it's like, dude, that polling firm could be 5 points off the aggregate, and people will still be sharing it out as though it was real. I see this all the time from Democrats and Republicans and independent voices alike, and I'm wondering what the fuck they're doing with their lives. If I look at the vast preponderance of data, though, in the races that are 50-50 or nearly so, most of them are peeling off in the GOP's direction, happening at exactly the wrong moment for the Democrats, too. Their advantage in the generic ballot is now gone. The GOP now has the advantage again by about a point. You have to understand that typically, over the last half century, the GOP has outperformed in midterms. Not necessarily in general elections. There might be polling variance, but it's closer. You have less polling. You have generally higher turnout among those small town and suburban communities that have begun to lean even more GOP. And now you've got the Hispanic voter question. That plays a role in Nevada, Arizona, where Kari Lake, of course, is hoping to win the gubernatorial slot, and some of these other states. I suspect that it will be more than my conservative estimation of a mild red wave election. If I were to run it through a computer program 100 times, I would expect that more than 50 of those times I'm underestimating the GOP's pickups, to be clear. I would expect it to be like a 65-35 proposition. I'm excited for these midterms, you can tell. Of course, as a non-Republican, I'm not conservative, and I definitely chuff a little bit at some of the Jesus bullshit that I hear from some of even the MAGA candidates who I generally otherwise like. Despite all of that, the best thing for the country right now is that the Republicans run roughshod over the Democratic Party to the degree where MAGA candidates have replaced enough of the neocons to prevent any pork barrel funny business, and you get to the point where Biden becomes a lame duck for 2 whole fucking years. That way it severely constrains his ability to continue doing damage to the U.S. economy and to the U.S. way of life. I do favor that, thankfully, actually happening, again, based on Nevada at this point. We'll get more data soon from places like Georgia, places like Pennsylvania. There is movement there. It's just a matter of how much movement it is, and is it an outlier poll, or do the next 3 polls corroborate it? In this case, we have corroboration from multiple polling firms about the velocity that is in the GOP's favor. That's about all. Peace out.